Welcome to Resilience plus Rise, the podcast wherein we talk about challenges and adversities. And my guest includes those amazing personalities who has challenged those adversities and risen above through their perseverance, through their grit and sheer determination that it is possible not just to exist, but to live and to live life full. The podcast is based on my book, Resilience plus Rise 26.2 Transformative Miles to Unleash Your Marathon of Life Mindset. Today's guest, he's a repeat guest, but I'm so excited. I'm so excited to call back Troy Karnes. Troy has been an incredible piece of human work. Let me put it in this way. He has just launched his book, No Silver Bullets. And as per his ideology, your life isn't broken. Stop trying to fix it. He always believes people chase for quick fixes to feel better. But he knows what's it all about. To the people who have not heard about Troy before, he, of course, in this conversation, you'll get to know a lot more about it, but he has faced adversities. He has seen life in very, very close quarters. He has come through and still working on making decisions. It goes back to that statement is that people at times make a decision, but how to make better decision under pressure. That's what Troy will talk about. So, without wasting much time, Troy, welcome to Resilience plus Rise, the podcast.
Oh my gosh, Thomas, thank you for such a kind introduction. I'm happy to be back with you, and your smile just makes me smile. I can't stop. My cheeks will hurt tomorrow morning because I'm hanging out with you for half an hour. It's going to be amazing.
You're too very kind. So, Troy, no silver bullets. I've heard your story, but people who have not heard your story or want to know who's Troy, because I always say is that as I'm also written a book, and I know as authors, our books comes out of some of our deepest of pains, could be, or it could be our amazing joys that we want to spread it around. Or as I always tend to say, is that some of the brightest of lights shine from the deepest of our wounds. So, what's the story behind No Silver Bullets?
Well, it's a little bit of all of those things, really. It is a transformation that I went through and how I see the world a little bit differently now. You mentioned earlier how we see people looking for quick fixes, and I see it all the time, and I think I see it because I was I was one for a very long time. And he said, who is Troy? And the way I think of myself is some just a regular guy who got slammed by life for a couple years and came out the other side a little bit smarter and hopefully a little bit wiser and ready to share the things that I wish I would have known before it all happened. And I want to do that because not that it would have, maybe it would have changed the way that my life unfolded, but probably not. But I don't think that's the point. I think the point is to just be better equipped to deal with the challenges that come our way,
Hmm.
because they will. Everybody faces challenges. And if we're in a better place to deal with the challenges that come our way, then I think we're in pretty good shape. And, I think about this a lot because part of my story is one of addiction. And, I spent years with a drinking problem, not asking for help. And I, I read a lot about sobriety and people talking about the beautiful life that they get when they stop drinking. And that has been true for me in some ways, but I think that the difference between maybe the general like thoughts about that and my thought about that is that like getting sober did not fix all of my problems. Like my problems didn't just magically go away because I stopped drinking, but I am more capable now of dealing with the issues
Okay.
that I face in my life. And that's the point. It's not to get rid of challenges or things that are really hard. It's just to be more capable of dealing with them in a more responsible and mindful way.
So,
And yeah,
sorry, just wanted to ask a question. Is that this challenge of the alcoholism, it was when you already had a family,
yeah, yeah,
and from what yes, we have had a talk before, and your family consisted about two kids
yep,
also,
exactly.
and you
Yep,
were continuing in the journey of just being an alcoholic.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah. I Yeah, my kids at the time were, when I went to rehab, they were 5 and 2. They were 5 and 2. They were young. They were young.
wow, okay,
And the day I checked myself into rehab was I had gone out the night before, woke up on a Monday very hungover, and started drinking more that day to medicate myself in my mind, to you know, straighten myself out a little bit. And my wife and I both work from home, so I tried to hide it from her. She's smart. She she knew what was happening, and I lied about it, and she kicked me out. She called an Uber, booked a hotel, and said, "You got to get out of here. You can't be home like this." And the prospect of then losing my family was the last straw. Certainly not the first one. I should have listened many, many times before, but I didn't. But I listened that time. And that night, checked myself into rehab. 2 days later, left, left for a while to go get help. And it was also at that moment when the reason I asked for help then and hadn't before was because before I thought that I could handle it. I thought I was strong. I thought I didn't need help. That help Asking for help was a sign of weakness. But in that moment, it had been beaten into my head so many times that my stubbornness crumbled. I said, well, this is not something that I can do by myself. And at that point, it felt like help was the only option, because I had tried and tried and tried to control myself on my own, and I couldn't. And it made me feel shameful. It made me feel weak. Lots of negativity around that I carried from not being able to control my drinking. But at that point, it just the overwhelming amount of evidence showed me that I could not do this on my own.
okay. So, Troy, you used the word slammed by life. Now, to the people who are listening to this conversation until here, now I know the story how it unfolds, but A lot of people say, yeah, even I have been an alcoholic. I've come out of it. My family life had been in the shambles. So what's the big
Yeah.
deal about you getting resilient? What happened?
Yeah, what's the big deal? I mean, listen, 48 million Americans would qualify for substance abuse disorder if they got checked out. So that certainly does not make me special. Um, but 100 days, 98 days into my sobriety, and the week that I was supposed to graduate from rehab, uh, the doctors found a tumor in my shoulder, one
Hmm.
that turned out to be, my surgeon called, big, scary, dangerous, rare cancer.
Ouch.
It's
Okay.
bingo. That's cancer bingo. And it's a bone cancer. It was in my shoulder blade. He ended up removing my shoulder blade, which is a pretty rare procedure. So, um, and then 6 weeks later, a second procedure to have an implant put in to replace my diseased scapula. And if I hadn't gotten help for my addiction when I did, I would not have had the tools to stay sane or sober through the diagnosis, the surgeries, the physical therapy, and everything that came along with it. But I did end up putting together a pretty powerful system to take care of my body, my mind, my soul, and and now I'm on the other side. I've had a better outcome than any of the doctors or surgeons dreamt that I'd have. I shared, Thomas, with you earlier that I'm at our summer vacation lake, and I went for a swim this morning for an hour. And when I told my surgeon that I could swim, like crawl, freestyle, uh, he couldn't believe it. I sent him a video, and he said, "That's amazing. I don't know how you can do that." So my outcome has been very good, but it took a lot of work and a good system to get it there.
So, guys, here we are talking to Troy, who has lost his shoulder due to cancer. But um, there have been, you go to his website. Incidentally, I will be putting out his connection links and his website in the comments below. Do have a look onto it. It's quite an incredible piece of information, and specifically if you look at all the nuts and the bolts, as I would say, what his shoulder is holding up with. And so you put in a system, and I believe this system is the crux of no silver bullet, right? If
Yes.
you don't mind sharing that with the
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah, of course. So this is a system that I learned about in my addiction recovery. And it's hard. Addiction's hard. More than 85% of people who try to stop an addiction, their first year will relapse. And that includes things like smoking addictions, behavior addictions like shopping or food or things like that. If it's just alcohol, though, you're still, somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of people who stop will relapse in their first year. So it's hard. And I asked my therapist in rehab how people mess up. Coming from a business background, I said, if I know how people mess up, I just won't do those things. And then I'll give myself a chance to succeed. And she said, well, people don't make good decisions when they're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. HALT. And it terrified me because those are not things you can just avoid. Those are things that we all feel every day of our lives. And that really taught me like why this was so hard.
Hmm.
And it got taught to me in a way that wasn't going to work for me. She said, if you feel like having a drink, think, do you feel hungry or angry or lonely or tired? And if you do, go take care of that and then see if you still want to drink. And I said, well, that feels like you want me in a moment of weakness to stop, run through this checklist, and then make the good decision to take care of one of those feelings versus the easy decision, which is to go have a drink. And it felt like that would take so much willpower. And Thomas, I didn't make it to rehab because I have a lot of willpower, right?
Okay.
So I thought about it for a couple weeks because there was something about HALT that did feel powerful. And I put in a system that was a little more proactive.
Hmm.
So I thought, well, if I can eat in a way where I'm avoiding being super hungry to get angry and emotional, and if I can process my emotions instead of stuffing them down until they erupt, and if I can reach out to my friends and family and have more honest and deep conversations with them, I won't feel as lonely. And if I just prioritize sleep and exercise, then I'll have a little bit more energy. And if I can do those things, then I'm going to give myself a chance. So that's what I did. And where it all cashed out is that I see in society people look for quick fixes all the time. Hungry, fast food, Snickers bar, protein bar, right? If you're emotional, what's easy? Stuff the emotion, don't deal with it, move on, right? Lonely, oh, let me open social media and click like or whatever, or I'll text a friend, oh, I'm tired, like give me the caffeine. Where's my 8-minute abs? But none of these things work long
Yes.
term, right? None of them work long term. And when we just try to fix these problems all the time, it to me feels like playing whack-a-mole, because every time you whack a problem
Right.
down, a new one pops up. And I got so many better results when I started nurturing the things that mattered the most. The foundational things in my life, I started nurturing and treating them like they would be around forever, because guess what? They will be.
Hmm.
And that's actually when I started getting better results, right? I used to be a really big guy. I lost 50 pounds. I left my
Wow.
9 to 5 job and I replaced my salary in 6 months. I was on the verge of divorce. My marriage is great now. I probably wasn't like a great father. And now I drive my kids to school every day. I pick them up. I'm more present with them. I'm a better friend, father, husband when I started nurturing these things. I also don't carry resentments as much anymore. And I used to have a really big problem with the hamster in the brain that would just spin and run
Hmm.
on the wheel, run on the wheel, overthinking everything, ruminating all the time. And I cut that down. Incredible results by doing the thing that was counterintuitive, which is to stop fixing problems.
That's just amazing. Actually, when you talk about we reach out to one of the first things that gives us the support, specifically. And now, when you talk about being hungry, being angry, or being lonely or tired, and I was just talking to this dear friend of mine, Christina, and she was mentioning is that because of the challenges that she faced, she got into excessive just eating,
Mhm.
and I have been in that particular boat. So whenever I'm in that stress mode or something like that, I just pick up something. Just it has to be something salty, something crunchy, or if I'm feeling lonely, then it could be something which is sweet or mushy,
Yeah.
that I could just feel a sense of the comfort food or however it is. But then it is just, is it that your body really wants it, or is it your ego or the other mind was just looking out for it? And actually, Troy, this comes out so beautifully to some of the one of the statements. And this, I was having a conversation the other day with another person, another wonderful person, and I always tend to quote Viktor Frankl's, "Between the stimuli and the response, there's a space, and it's in that space you have the freedom, a freedom of
Yeah.
choice on what you want to select." And when we put halt into practice, I believe we will have a stronger stimuli that we would be proud of rather than regret.
Yeah. The way that has shown up in my life is it creates a little bit of a larger gap
Hmm.
between the stimulus and the response. For example, Thomas, same way with me. Like, I got to be a pretty big guy because I ate my emotions. As a kid, as a kid, I had the nickname human garbage disposal because when people would finish their
Oh,
plates, I would say, "Oh, I'll eat your, like, whatever you didn't eat, I'll eat yours too." Right. And it took me a while to figure that out. But when I realized it, now I stop and I think, am I am I reaching for the cookies because I'm hungry, or is it something else? And if it's something else, I have lots of other ways to address that issue than by eating a cookie, right? Some
so
breath work, maybe some journaling, go for a walk, drink a glass of water, like a lot of
uh,
tactical
or
things that I
lemon
can
tea.
do. Or lemon tea, right? There's like a lot, there's a laundry list of things that I can do if I'm reaching for the cookie because I'm not hungry, or even though I'm not hungry, right? Um, and if I'm reaching for it because I'm hungry, then I can say, oh, then I have so many other options that are going to be better for not just my body, but for my mind and my emotions, right? And so then I can say, oh, yeah, wait, I am hungry. I'm just mindlessly reaching for this cookie, right? But if I can be mindful, then hopefully I can make a better decision. And it opens that space between the stimulus, which is, something that my body maybe generates, and what I decide to do about it.
Interesting. Actually, this whilst you were telling that, there was another question which popped up. Is that you saw that life was happening for you? You could have made it as you're just working your way to coming out of your alcoholism, and again, life gives you another blow. It missed your face, but it hit your shoulder. And
Mm.
so, in these particular cases, you could have still carried the flag of victim or martyr. What helped you to get more resilient or more having that fortitude within your own self to grow to the human that you are now?
I love this question. And I love this question because the answer is other people. I realized that I didn't have to do everything on my own. And in fact, asking for help, I used to think toxic belief. I used to think asking for help was a sign of weakness.
Uh, yeah,
Now I know it is a sign of maturity. And that that helped give me resilience because I didn't feel alone in my struggle. I knew there were people there to help me, and that's something I think I probably knew all along, but I was too ashamed to ask.
okay.
And I used to feel like I didn't want to put them out. I didn't want to be a hindrance and I didn't want to be a burden. Um, but then I realized, like, I thought about how I like to feel, and this is something Simon Sinek says, and I think it's pretty smart, is that I feel good when I get to help my friends. It makes me feel good to help them. And so if I don't ask for help, then I'm taking that away from them. I'm taking away the joy they will get if they can help me out. And so massive shift in my mindset there. And, trying to grit your way through on your own can work in short bursts. But if you're going to make it sustainable, you need the help of others.
It goes back to one of my pet ideologies, is that we all are angels with one wing. When we hold another, that's when we fly higher. Because again, when you're asking for help, you do not know what the other person is going through. And as you just mentioned, it's quite possible that when you're asking for help, even they might find a path out of their own despair or some challenges that they are facing, which you may not even know about.
Yeah, right.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
No silver bullets. Straight blank question. Why should people buy your book?
Yeah, great question. Why should people buy my book? Yeah. Well, people should buy my book because I think that now more than ever, it's pretty clear that there are no giant systematic cures for the the big issues in our society, right? Like the number of obese people in America is gigantic.
Hmm.
Almost more than 18% of kids obese as well. Like I said before, there are 48 million Americans who would qualify as having substance abuse disorder. Uh, Not many of them will get help, only 26%. The rest of them don't think they need it. We're in a loneliness epidemic.
Hmm.
30% 30% of adults feel lonely on a weekly basis, and 10% feel lonely every single day. We Only half of us have three close friends. In 1990, 75% of us had three close friends. And I mean like friends that you would tell things you would tell your therapist, like a confidant, right? Um, Most people don't get enough exercise or get enough sleep. They're, like 40% of adults will fall asleep during the day on accident because we don't
Okay.
get enough sleep. And so, this is sure a giant list of statistics and problems and everything. But I think the way that we look at those problems as a society, we think, okay, well, we have an obesity epidemic, we have a loneliness epidemic, we have a mental health epidemic, and this nets out in 90% of people thinking that we have a mental health crisis. But to me, it just seems like a health crisis because none of these things exist on their own. All of these issues touch each other and they both affect and are affected by the other ones. And so what I advocate for is an approach that looks at these four quadrants, right? Issues that are internal and external and physical and emotional a little bit every day, but never in isolation because they all connect with each other. And since there are no big structural things coming to save us, we need to do it ourselves and with our communities. And that's
Wow.
what I am for.
Now that is powerful. That is very powerful. To the guys who have reached until the stage of listening to our conversation, think, and if this is not inspiring you to get to the next level of your life, whatever stages you're in, make yourself a better human. I'm sure it will make a difference. And because over here, I'm talking to this amazing human called as Troy, who has seen how that difference has made into his life, losing more than, you mentioned 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And as he saw, as we heard, being slammed by life, walking away from being an alcoholic, fighting through the adversities of the body problem, and learning, but not keeping the lessons to his own self, but growing from there. As we come to our end of our session, is there something that you would like to tell our audience and the listeners?
The message that I like to share at the end of talks like this, it really is it's the subtitle of the book, which is that your life isn't broken.
Hmm.
And I don't think you need to fix your life. Your life is worth nurturing, and you'll get better results when you take that approach.
Beautiful. So, guys, I will just put it down. Forget about the challenges. Yes, challenges, we cannot undermine it. But the main takeaway would be is that something to think about. We base the system on the fact that nobody makes a good decision when they are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. As Troy has mentioned, he has broken it down into that matrix of the internal and the external, the physical and the emotional challenges we face on a daily basis. And it is not just theory, it's actionable. And I have seen few elements of Troy's book. It's brutal fact that what he has gone through. Do click on the link down below. Make it a gift that your life will say thank you for it. So, Troy, with this, I conclude today's session. Thank you so very much for your space and time. Let me stop the
Thank you so much, Thomas. It's always so good to see you. Keep smiling.